Thank you, Danielle. Awesome. Can you guys see the screen okay when I'm not standing in front of it? In terms of the lighting up above, should we turn off the lights up or high, or is it okay? Okay. I don't know if we want to do the upper lights, but...
Would you prefer the upper lights?
Well, let's see. I appreciate Nick and Danielle hosting me. It's great to be here in Davis County. I'm grateful for all of you guys making the Blue Wave happen. And I welcome everybody, Democrats, Independents, and Republicans. You're all welcome. You can all be part of the change that we want there to be. My name is Jake Rugh. I've lived here in Utah for 12 years. I'm originally from Chicago. I am a sociologist who's worked on 10 civil rights cases. My area of expertise is around housing segregation and immigration, which are both issues you have to stay up to date on a lot. And a lot of those skills have helped me a lot in analyzing elections. As a sociologist, I'm extremely interested in Utah because of what's happening sociologically. People sharing with others and changing their minds and making things happen that, can you imagine, right, from 12 years ago, we're going to show you some changes people would have never imagined. People laughed in my face when I first started talking about this, okay? Because I called stuff before it started happening. All right, so let me tell you one thing, and then we're going to go build up to this, okay? But a little preview, just in case you didn't know, Utah swung more blue than any other state. It's not even close. 24 points left since 2004. It doesn't matter if you use George W. Bush or Mitt Romney. They're both within 2 points of each other. This is not a Romney effect of an artificial high. W. Bush in 2004 was just about as high, right? Those were the twin peaks. We have gone through those valleys, and we are on the other side of that right now. And we're the fastest growing youngest state. We're going to have a 5th congressional district. So we want to flip at least 2 blue in the next decade. Okay, we're not satisfied with 1. And I just want to remind you that we are the most educated red state by a lot. Kansas is like 21st, right? And there's some other special things about Utah that I will tell you. And I'll tell you a little bit about why I'm a Democrat too in these slides. So first, the bad news. I am an optimistic, hopeful person. So it's important that I validate how bad things are. And you could pick 30 things. I'm only picking 3. Okay? The most important reason why I'm a Democrat is because of civil rights, right? And everything that people have fought for, because the civil rights movement was not just for black people, it was for everybody. Okay? And people of all races and religions joined in, and that's what made it successful, right? And America would not have fulfilled its promise, which is slipping away right now, of course, without black Americans, right? And being from the south side of Chicago, I lived in the same neighborhood where Barack Obama lives, Harold Washington, the first black mayor, and I had a lot of teachers, coaches, and leaders that were black who showed me what it means to be a patriotic American. So the gutting of the Voting Rights Act, John Lewis, so many others were willing to give their lives, and so many gave their lives. So we could have that. That is something that's catastrophic. Democrats are actually in array and actually doing things in state after state to respond, which is hopeful. The second thing is, in case you didn't know, this is pretty recent. Dr. Tara Watson of the Brookings Institute, who's an economist, estimated that there's been at least 100,000 children, and most of them are U.S. citizens who have been deported and expelled from this country. This is an absolute tragedy, and it derives from the lawlessness and abuse of power. I got to be a faculty mentor for Yvette Galvez, who's Guatemalan American, who's now a citizen, and you know she's voting, okay? And she has documented that the own government statistics of the Homeland Security show, right, that 95% of those arrested by ICE, nonviolent, and 80% have not been convicted of any crime. Right, haven't committed a crime, okay? And this directly contradicts their narrative, their own data, in her award-winning project. And then number 3, right, there's been what we will call deeply suspect. You can call it straight up corrupt, whatever you want to phrase it, but I will call it deeply suspect process that has eroded public trust from voters of all backgrounds. That is not unique to Democrats. And this backlash against data centers, from Georgia to Utah, nationwide, is something that is galvanizing people in a major way. Credit to our friends Jackie and Gabby, who broke open a lot of these stories, who did the digging, who looked through the property records. but Schultz, Adams, straight up corrupt. Okay, straight up corrupt. And again, as a sociologist, this is because they have absolute power, right? It's not because they were born corrupt or worse people. It's because absolute power corrupts absolutely, right? And that is what has happened. There's been no check with the supermajority. When we had Herbert, right, he would check the legislature and provide leadership. We don't have that right now, okay? So we need to break the supermajority, in case you forget that. Okay, now the encouraging news, okay? Some new maps for you guys. Say goodbye to Stuart Adams. He has been voted out in his primary. And again, majority of Americans oppose data centers in their community. And I'll try not to stand in the exact same spot for you guys every time. A brilliant certified genius who's received the MacArthur Genius Award, Tracy McMillan Cotton, fellow sociologist, says that these data centers evoke strong emotions. They're tangible. You can hear them, smell them, see them, right? They are something that's going to galvanize people, unite people. Places that are divided by tribal concerns, cultural politics, right? When these political problems become local, she says, people can be persuaded to look beyond their party affiliation, right, to help one another. So this is an issue that here in Utah we have seen people seize upon and use and say, are we going to let, right, the Great Salt Lake dry up, right? We have the Olympics coming. Are we going to embarrass ourselves with the whole world coming here? This is a galvanizing issue, right? People care. People are not against technological progress, right? But they are for responsible, legitimate, ethical processes, right? And the processes for that Stratos thing were just so bad, right? And that's why we see this, absolutely critical. And fair maps are very popular, right? 2/3 of Utah voters support fair maps, majorities of every party. We obviously know that, right, they're going to try to chip away and politicize this again. They're going to try some new tricks, new amendment language. BYU student had an award-winning project that showed that those past amendments would have been deeply misleading and maybe would have passed the way they were written, right? So thank goodness we have checks and balances, that we didn't have those amendments the last time. They're going to try something sneaky again. I think it's going to happen later this summer, as far as I know from the insiders, right? They're going to try to do something again. They have not been chastened on this. And why do they act like an animal that's cornered, the legislature? Because the legislative maps are next decade, right? That's why. And it's really not that many seats that would change, right? It'd be a handful, some here or there, right? Districts like around yours and others. It's still going to be majority Republican, right? It's still going to be a red state, calm down, right? But there's that deep insecurity of knowing that you're doing something wrong, okay? And that's really why they fight the fair maps so much. What I like to point out is that in district across district, those who took their names off that failed petition against fair maps, right? 38% Republican, 36% unaffiliated, 27% Democratic. This is in Salt Lake, Senate District 15, one of the ones they targeted and called people, right? This was a cross-partisan effort to get off of this horrible thing. And Democrats are so back now. Ben McAdams has won easily. He's somebody who will position himself more to the left and be more progressive than before with a more progressive district. And you can see the results here from the primary. This is great that we have representation in Congress. As I will show you later, Democrats are getting 35 to 40% of the votes, but 0% of the seats, right? So now we're going to get 25% of the seats, okay? And you see when we have 5 seats, get 40% with 2 of them, okay? Get that alignment. The other encouraging news is that the people of Twin Cities, Minnesota, Twin Cities broadly, right, and it goes beyond the Twin Cities, but mostly people who live in the suburbs like Davis County, right? Mostly white people, mostly people that were not political, right, which is a term that white people use a lot, got involved and said, we're going to make people lunches. We're going to give them food. We're going to give them rides to school. A lot of these things were developed in Chicago and Los Angeles, the whistles, the Facebook groups for the rides. It's not like people in Minnesota invented all of this, but they came together, right? And that inspired the nation, and that turned the tide, and you see the majority of Americans say, this needs to stop, right? ICE needs to be disbanded, needs to be reinvented. And I think everybody in this room was alive for 9/11, right? I mean, ICE is only that old. It was only constituted in 2002. It has not been around since, and it's not in the Constitution. It's something we can redo. And that's been amazing. Here in Utah, we have the highest attendance at protests of any red state. Montana's the dot that's pretty close. They're right there, so way to go, Montana. And that's really incredible. We've had really large rallies from Logan to Provo, Moab, all over the state, many, many cities. It's been absolutely inspiring. Utah Democrats have been out there tabling at all these events, registering new voters, and we'll see the results of that in a minute. And Utah is on paper the #2 most welcoming state for immigrants, tied with a few other blue states after California. The laws on the books for refugees, getting a driver's license, getting in-state tuition, so many things that make life easier and make it so people can reach the American dream. It's absolutely inspiring and incredible. And this last session had at least 12 bills that were against immigrants, and they all got beat back. Okay? And we know that one of those sponsors of those bad bills that were in direct contradiction of the official policy of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, and he admitted that because he knew they were, was just voted out. So RIP, Trevor Lee, and hello to your next rep, right? Abigail Treasure. She's a treasurer. She's over there. Okay. And her district is swinging blue like all the others in Davis County. So this is also remarkable, right? Because these are friends, and maybe some who are here, right? The moderates, especially the women who have organized and really voted in these Republican primaries and caucuses to vote out extremists, right? And to vote out extremism, right? The most extremist member of the legislature, okay? And especially in their conduct online, which is very contrary to everything that their church leaders taught them. More good news, we've had absolutely historic gains. I've looked through all the spreadsheets of all the years. I've never seen a year like this, where we're just going up and up and up. There's been presidential years where both parties go up, right? With competitive primaries for governor and so forth, but I've never seen a year diverge like this. Never, right? In all the sheets. Now, they don't go back, forever to the beginning of time, but the last 10, 12 years, this has never happened. And down in Utah County, we had almost 500 people at the caucuses, and we had 800 total between the caucuses and the county convention, right? And this is what's relatable to Davis County, right? 57% of those who were there were already registered Democratic, right? My cousin's wife was there, right? He used to be the Republican precinct chair. He resigned the Republican Party in 2016, right? And now she's out there organizing for the Democrats, right, as an independent. So many people like that who are there, 61% women, over half were millennial Gen Z, right? And a fifth were unaffiliated. And in a lot of these locations, right, we had 100 or more people at a location, okay? So this whole joke that people crack, there's one Democrat and then maybe one other will come to the event, right? We don't laugh anymore, right? Like it's done. Okay? And that's really important, that it stops going from being a joke that people crack about us, right, to saying, let me show you the data, right? Let me show you this blue wave that is building across the state of Utah, county after county, including Davis County, right? We know from the data that we're already off the charts, the special elections data, the elections in New Jersey, Virginia, many others. I'll show you the municipal stuff in Utah in a minute, right? It looks like we're headed to at least an 11-point swing from what the vote was in the previous election, right? So that'd be going from about 1.5, right, to about 9.5, right? Somewhere 9, 10 points. And when you look at the latest, highest quality poll from New York Times Siena, you see an 11-point lead nationally, okay? So again, it's just kind of like when your due date is, right? You know you're not going to have the baby on that day, right? You know it's not going to be 11.0, right? But you know it's going to be around that. That's a very reliable estimate, right? This is going to be probably a double-digit wave. So for those of us who were around in 2006, this is going to be more like 2006 even than 2018, okay? And this is really, really big blue wave that is building really big. And the biggest reason why, and this is something we see in Utah with the data center issues, is because independents were even in the 2024 presidential election, right? And people who didn't vote, right, what was their preference? Obviously, I know they didn't vote. I get that, right? They were tilting a little Republican, but now you see when you ask those same people, they're clearly very much against all this inflation, the tariffs, ICE, right? Just pick an issue, right? They're against it, right? The corrupting of the reflecting pool, really corrupting the party of Lincoln and the symbolism of Lincoln on one side, right? And turning it out, you're like, oh my goodness. Ooh, that's bad. All right. So our goal in 2028, to keep in mind, is to get at least 600,000 votes for Democratic candidate for president. I think we get 620 is a little high, but I think we get at least 600. And what I want to point out that I showed at the state convention is that in 2024, we had the majority of votes cast for Kamala Harris for the Democratic candidate came from outside of Salt Lake County, right? For the first time in all the time series I'm showing. And that was big because, you know, Salt Lake is a lot like New York, right? It's the whole center of the universe. People there think everything revolves around them, right? And that's okay. It's because it's a beautiful, wonderful city, you know what I'm saying? But you know what I mean, the frame of reference, where they're like, oh, we have most of the votes and hardly anybody else counts, right? But no, it's like, no, actually we have more combined, right? And what's driving that? Davis and Utah, right? Fast growing, tens of thousands of new people, right, in the last 10 years, okay? So that's really, really big. And Davis is actually doing better than us in a way I'm going to show in a second, okay? So Davis has the second biggest blue swing in the USA. Davis and Utah County are about 37, 39 points. And again, like I told you earlier, if you look since 2004, it's very similar. You can see it went from 62 points Republican to 25. So it's a 37-point swing. That's huge, right? And when I say in the USA, there are 3,112 counties, right? So out of 3,112, you are literally number 2, and you're basically tied with Utah County at number 1, right? 39, okay? That is huge, yep. So like remember this, and I've given this link to the organizers, right? They're going to send out the slides. You don't have to, you know, memorize everything. But this is big, right? And another thing I want to point out is when you look at the swing states in the purple boxes, and then you look at Utah, you're like, was Utah a swing state? Did the campaigns invest that much money, right? Now we had the, you know, LDS voters for Harris Zoom call had 2,500, 3,000 at the peak, I think. I spoke at that, others did. And you know, the Biden one had like 300, right? So we knew that was 10 times as big, that organizing. We knew that the parties actually had outreach, and they were doing it because they wanted to have the LDS voters in Arizona and Nevada, right? That was why, right? They actually were making good faith efforts and investments, right? That was big. But let's be real, right? Utah was not a swing state, but on this map, it looks like one. It sure does, right? It's the only state where Harris did better than Biden. And it's the only state where you can see the majority of the counties clearly shifting blue. Now, obviously, Salt Lake's a big county and it didn't shift blue, but it didn't shift red as much as you would predict, right? Based on other counties that are just like it. So that was a really big deal. And again, I woke up the next day super depressed, right? Depressed for a whole month. Even me, depressed for a month. And I have a little license plate on my bike that's UMOD, for Utah's most optimistic Democrat that my students gave me, by the way. But it hit hard. So after I regrouped and started looking at this stuff, and the more I looked at Utah, I was like, the better and the better this looks, right? Get relative to the nation, right? Relative to what happened, okay? People hate inflation, right? We know that, right? But people are also not getting correct information, right? That was the other big issue, okay? So the thing that stands out with Davis County is that you see here Trump's vote actually going down by almost 3,000. That was really big. Because even most of Utah was just like Trump holding and then Harris doing a little better because of population growth, right? Here, you had a net 3,000 like subtraction. That did not happen in Utah County. That didn't happen in a lot of other counties. That was big, and you saw you went up about 2,500. And it's always like that. It's never one for one, because you know those friends that are like, I'm going to vote for some 8th party or 9th party, right? You know what I mean? Like, you know what I'm saying? Some protest thing. I'm like, well, you know, that didn't really help, right? It's never one for one, but it's pretty close, right? 2,400 on one side, 3,000 on the other, okay? And then in terms of percentage, right, this is very similar to the national LDS vote. The Trump share just kind of stayed the same, right? And that went up by 2 points. It's the same thing we saw nationally, for example, for LDS voters, okay? So that's also impressive, right? And remember, this was a year, right, where the country swung 6 points right and you went 2 points left. So on the number line, like the teacher in math class, right, you were 8 points relative to the nation. Okay? That's really big. That's a really big swing because most counties went right. Okay? Okay, now I had so much fun putting these pictures in, and this took so much more time than you think, and looking at everybody's pictures, I was like, is that their best picture? Is that the one they want? I was like, I hope so.
This is the best slide.
Okay, now tell me your name. Wait, which okay, all right, that's right. Okay, so now is it Scott? No, okay, and say your last name is Troxel? Troxel, okay. Now, Scott, you got the most wind of your back, okay, so no pressure. He's out celebrating, you know, after November, we'll be like, Scott, did you do the best out of everybody? But right, and I think we're in that district right now, is that correct?
Yes.
We're in 18, and I looked at some of these districts in Centerville, they were swinging 10, 15 points blue, right? So clearly, you know, after January 6th, something happened, and we all know anecdotally, right, something happened with people where they said, you know what, that was the end. That was enough, right? Now, sadly, it wasn't enough for everybody, right? But I think it was disproportionately for LDS voters, right? Kind of the classic Romney-Bush Republicans. That was the last straw. And you saw a lot of that happening and you see some of these blue ones. I think that's the one that I centered in once on a map. And you see it all over the county. Every district has blue, medium, and dark blue, right? And again, that's 10 and that's 20, right? And it's incredible what's happening, okay? Now, it's not everywhere, right? But it's clearly in every district. Everyone swung Democratic in a year that swung Republican, right? Really, really big. Now, I've got the other candidates, I think, on this next one in a second. This is not the table with your names, but the way of thinking about this, I noticed the way they numbered these, they basically go from north to south, right? So south half, is this kind of lagoon in the middle and south? Yeah. Sort of, right, pretty much? Okay, we'll just say roughly, right? This is pretty much everything south of lagoon. So you can see that, right, these are shifting even more so, right? But all across, right, huge shift, especially since 2012, right? I mean, these are all huge shifts. And then the ones in the last 4 years, they're not really that different, right? They're all like 1, 2, 3, 4 points, right? And that's not a huge difference. The whole point is that they all moved left in a year when the whole country moved right. And again, that's a really big deal. Something is going on in Davis County, right? I think the word is getting out, people are sharing, and they're realizing, hey, my neighborhood is also voting blue, right? Not just me. And that's really, really critical to any change. Then these are some of the overlapping ones. I know that Senate District 8 is not up this year.
It's all right. It's the most important.
Yeah.
Second best one.
No, see, I got your name on this one though too, Gary. So this is good. Because it wasn't so crowded, you know. CJ won her primary, God bless her. Jared Neal, I don't know if he's here tonight, but he's over here. So these are all doing really well, right? They're all swinging left. And the reason why the average doesn't add up to 2, because you're like, did you cheat on those numbers? Is because the one up in the upper left is not showing. Is that, I can't remember what number that is, but part of it is in Davis County, okay? But they're all swinging blue. And you can see that this one, I'm going to show some more data in a moment. This one is the one that's closest, right, to tipping. Okay, it's getting there. And I know Elisa ran last time and had this whole coordination problem. Right, we can avoid that next time. We'll be good. It's all right. It's fine. Right, it's just going to be more blue by the time we get all coordinated. It's all good. So I want to talk about this idea of a winning coalition. Okay, this is great because we don't have enough time. They're always cross-partisan. They're united by a common cause. Right, you got to have something in common. It's really hard, but I know we can have something in common. We're all excited about 250 years of America, right? Whatever, pick something, right? So the Fair Maps thing was a huge uniting thing, right? And that's something that united the League of Women Voters, right? Campaign Legal Center, right? MWEG, they all united around that. Historic, right? And Harris had the highest Democratic presidential share since LBJ won Utah. I mean, huge, okay? It also can be surprising. Like I talked about before, that cross-partisan alliance at our conventions and caucuses, it was only 58% Democrats, right? And I actually think it was 57. That's the problem when you try to memorize numbers. I was off by 1. 57% Democrats, right? Welcome, right? How do you think we're going to win, right? Not by having some little club in a treehouse that's tiny, right? But by saying, yeah, I want 43% of the people that are being newcomers, right? And you're going to be welcome, right? And we're going to give a speech where we welcome you. They can be realigning, right? So what's been happening, I'll show you more on this in a minute. I have really good data. This is fun. You guys are going to see stuff for the first time. People should have come, but you're here. Is this realignment because in the 20th century, 1950s, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, right, the backbone of the Republican Party was what? College-educated, suburban, home-owning white people, right? And now today in this midterms, college-educated, suburban white people will be what? The most reliable people to turn out and make the blue wave. I mean, that is just bonkers, right? You would have never thought that during the W. Bush years, right? Reagan years, right? But there's been a realignment, and this is what was going on in the 2010s, where people are like, oh, that won't happen in Utah. The Mormon voter effect just swamps everything else. I'm like, no, I think it's happening. I think it's going to keep happening, right? And the whole Romney thing kind of put it artificial, right, kind of the other way. You didn't see that trend happening. But after that, with Trump and everything we've just seen the same thing happen in America happen in Utah. So in a way, that's kind of validating to say, well, we're not that special, right? What's happened in Kansas and Alaska and Texas and the suburbs, Virginia, Georgia, right? All those suburban places, the Texas Triangle metros, right? Everything that's happening there is happening here, right, in Davis County. right? It's the same thing. It's just that people had this little chip in their brain. They're like, oh, what happened to Mormons? I'm like, no, it will, right? And it has, right? And that's a credit to voters who are educated and reason things out for themselves and reject things that are against the Constitution. It's also inspiring, right? We've seen Hungary, Prop 4, Minnesota versus ICE, I already talked about, and motivating, right? There's got to be something motivating, and this is where the data centers come in and the primaries and the general, right? There has to be something where people have an enlightened self-interest. It can't just be, oh, I want to be on that map that Jake Rue's going to show in his slides, right? There's got to be something where they say, what's in it for me, and it motivates them to cast a ballot and do it. And especially for the younger voters, because I hate to tell you, half the problem with them is they do the top office and then they drop off. They don't fill out the rest of the ballot, right? Or they wait until the day of and then they're in line, presidential 3-hour lines, right? So that it's weird, funky stuff like that. These are just the data that we've talked about already. Seeing different types of coalitions, all of these, a lot of these are Utah-based. I'll talk about the bottom one in a minute that's nationally based. But all of these, you can see there's, not all of them, but everyone besides the third to last, the fourth one, there's no majority. That's kind of what I'm getting at, right? You're going to need everybody to do it, okay? You're going to need everybody. And that's a little bit different of people saying, well, all liberals should just be expelled from the U.S., right? Or we hate liberals, you know what I mean? It's not the mirror image of the other side, right? It's not that I don't hate the other side. I got no hate, right? Nas said, right? Hate, just wasted energy, right? One of my favorite rap lyrics, right? I don't have hate, right? I want people to just make their own choice, reason that, and join us, right? I don't want to point the finger and say, oh, you're part of the problem, right? I want to say, you can be part of the solution, right? That's much more empowering, right? And that's the way I teach students, and they respond so much better to that, right? So this was that exit poll in 2024, just showing that among Republicans, there's so many who are not MAGA, and we already got a third of them, right? We already got 1/3. You know how big that is to get 1/3 of a Republican voting bloc? Like, that doesn't happen anywhere, right? Except in Utah, okay? So let's keep going with this, right? So we've got this thing where the MAGA group is 40%, right? And their peak was 43, and it hasn't gone up since then. You know, like that was their peak, right? It's about 40, right? But they get their way because often they win these gerrymandered primaries, right? And they control one party. You see how this is all based on kind of political science institution stuff? But when you look at the numbers, we just got to get our act together, right? Like what happened with Elisa and Aaron, for example. 35-25, because when you add us, we're more than them, right? And again, that's a statewide thing, and it varies depending on where you are in the state, right, of course. So we've got to do 3 things all at the same time. We got to walk, chew gum, and juggle torches or something, right? We got to do all 3 things, right? We got to keep registering Democrats, so we're doing that. That's good. We got to engage and turn out young and unaffiliated voters, and I'll show you the good evidence on that from Ogden and elsewhere. And then we got to convert these high turnout, right, suburban educated voters, right? They correlate a lot with that. We've got to convert them because that's the 2 for 1, right? Because if you get somebody on your side, that's a 1 for 1. But if you get somebody on the other side, that's 2 for 1, right? Because they're -1, you're +1. Oh my goodness. How did you know there was so much math today? They're like, that's just arithmetic, man. You don't need a PhD for that. Okay. So I showed that, the registration thing. And then 2025 was very encouraging because all across Utah, we had our nonpartisan ally friends. We had our Democrats that flipped, our Democrats that held, and you see success was all above average at 70%, right? So really good, really reassuring. 1 year after 2024, 70% win rate, right? Super awesome, right? The mayor of Orem was the president of the food bank. The mayor of Provo, you know, another life should be a Democrat, right? But she's technically a Republican, but said, I'm quitting the legislature because they're so corrupt, right? Marcia Judkins, amazing woman, the mayor of Provo. So we've got so many good mayors, and especially here in Ogden, right up the road, we can see, and this is Kevin's race, but you look at any other race, they all swung 10, 20 points. And the important thing is you see a lot of areas that are majority Hispanic or Latino swinging left, right, a lot. So this is really reassuring. We've seen this across the nation from Florida to New Jersey to Texas. Hispanic voters are swinging left big time, big time. The other thing that we're going to do this really quick, the 10-second version is the west side of every city swung more right than the east side, okay? But when you look relative to the US on the right, benchmarking it with the 6-point shift to the right, almost every west side still trended left, right? Even the places that were majority Hispanic, majority Democratic, right? So that's really encouraging. Utah is definitely different, right? This is not like any other states. It's incredibly different than California, New York, Florida, all those other states. in terms of Hispanic and other voters, okay? Just want to show you one little stat along the way in our little ride here is that if you look at people when they did their registration in Provo, Utah, it's been since 2020 that most people registering are not registering Republican, right? It's been 6 years now, okay? So that's really big because, again, for most of us, the stereotype is, oh, yeah, 80% Republican, you know, like what Bush and Romney were getting, 80, 90%, but they've dropped off. And all the drop-off is from Republicans, right? It's not from all of us that were Democrats, like we're still doing there. We did the Obama thing, we're still there, right? That's a huge drop-off, right? I mean, if you went from 90 to 50, I mean, you lost almost half your red team right there. I mean, that's a big, big drop-off, right? Anyway, everybody who was mayor in Provo was all from the same neighborhood before. It was crazy. And so Marshall's the first West Sider, so it's huge. Anyway, that was fun. All right, so the suburbs is blue swing, right? Atlanta and the Wasatch Front have swung the most left in the last 20 years. It's huge. And all of these cities below the line, this is all the Wasatch Front cities you can see. For example, this is what? Fruit Heights. I believe FA is what?
Farmington.
Where we are. Hey, hey, hey. Right? Not a lot of farms, yo, but, you know, Farmington. I know there's still farms. We have those in Provo, too. But you can see below the trend line, right? And I think CE is what? Centerville, right? So just like I talked about earlier, right? These places are even below the trend line. I don't know what happened in Payson. They're excited about the front runner coming. But Centerville, right? These places really trended left, right? In a year where the whole country went right? Almost every county went right. So everything below that line shifted left, right? For example, like Orem went 3 points left, right? Or 9 points relative to the nation. So again, I was talking with a high-level person in the Democratic Party who had been a state chair, I think, in Ohio, and they were talking to me for like half an hour, and it was just blowing their mind, everything. And they were like, you know what? This is just like the Reagan Democrats. I was like, thank you. It is, right? They're like, we're so proud to be Republicans, but we keep voting against them. I'm like, well, I don't care what you call yourself. You know what I'm saying? Right? Because if they voted for Romney, they voted for McMullen, they voted for Biden, and they voted for Harris. Think about that. Right? That's 4 times in a row now. They're not doing this MAGA thing, right? Okay? So eventually, right, especially if these are your first 3 elections, you went McMullen, you went Biden, you went Harris. If those were your first 3 elections, you are not a reliable MAGA Republican voter, right? I'm sorry, okay? Everybody says you trend, you know, conservative when you get older and stuff. All the research is showing that's not automatically true, right? What's going to happen is we're going to have this enduring effect like we had with FDR and Democrats and with Reagan and Republicans. We're going to have it with Trump, right? We're going to have people who are going to be positively against MAGA for a generation or more, right? This is going to be a life-changing passage for them, especially if there's first few elections, right? I have no doubt, especially as you see this pattern continue. And again, it's kind of like, oh my goodness, right? Could this be a little bit steeper, this incline? It's not, right? But again, where the whole country swung more towards Trump, it didn't increase, right? It's flat. And that's something where Ryan Burge and I, we both agree. We disagree a little bit on the Harris share, but we both agree when we ran this data set that Trump did no better with LDS voters, right? He did not increase, right, at all. When he did, the rest of everybody's non-Mormon, right, basically. So again, let's look at where all the general authorities and general officers live, right, at the highest rate. You can see that's gone from 36 points Republican to 36 points Democratic, right, a 72-point swing. We don't know how people voted, right, but we know how their neighborhood voted, okay? There's no huge surge voting for Trump, right, where the leaders of the church live, okay? I'll just leave it at that, right? Now, right, it's ecological data, I know that, right? But their letter said in 2023, and I remember giving this to my students, right, is that just merely voting straight ticket or based on tradition, right, that's a threat to democracy, to just be an automaton, just do that, right? Either way, right? And I'm proud to have voted for Democrats and Republicans. A lot of the time it's because they were running against the Constitution person, right? You know what I'm saying? But we all got to be reasoning out person by person, candidate by candidate, right? And running more Democrats, so I always have a Democrat to vote for, right? Remember in 2024, this feels like forever ago, right? This was only 2 years and 3 months ago that Trump lost Davis County, right? Look at that right there, that purple right up there. Haley won it by 2 points. I mean, this is why the Republicans changed the rules. They said, well, we're not going to have a primary, right? Because what would have happened with the primary? Trump would have lost. It would have been so embarrassing to have their incumbent person lose. So they just had a caucus. And notwithstanding the caucus, especially the women that are Republican, they organized. And Mike Lee lost his precinct. That was verified and validated with reporting and on-site. And Haley won Bountiful and Provo, right? So again, that energy for people that are kind of part of the way there, right? They kind of know that that's morally wrong, but they're not ready to shed their Republican identity. It's so latent, that energy in Utah. It's just so right there, ready to harness, okay? Bountiful's a place that only voted 12 points Republican. It's kind of different than Provo. Provo's got a few blue precincts. It's got 6 total. Bountiful's got just a couple, but it's just really, really light pink, right? It's just really widespread across the city. And I know there's people like David Irvine and others, many prominent Republicans that are very anti-Trump, very outspoken, right? My wife's aunt, Kathleen McConkey, ran. Rosanna is a Democrat, right? She and her family there, they're very outspoken. But it's kind of just all across the board, and you can see that swing is really blue all across Bountiful, right? And that's a place that's heavily, disproportionately LDS, right, in Utah. So that's a great example of that happening. So it's one of those really anti-MAGA places when you look. This is Provo, and obviously we all know John Curtis was the mayor of Provo, so it's going to be a bigger differential here, right? But they're both really, really anti-MAGA, right? You know, besides like some of those places like Falls Church, Virginia, or whatever, it's like, what's the most anti-MAGA majority Republican place in America besides those places in Virginia? It's probably Provo and Bountiful, Utah, right? Where you have so many people still voting Republican, but so many voting against Trump, right? So many. That's our opportunity. The people that are cross-pressured, right? They know, they're lifted their conscience. This is called the Mormon Corridor. A lot of you guys maybe learned about it in school, right? Where they set up the settlements 50 miles apart all the way down by horseback and through Vegas and Star Valley, Wyoming. So across multiple states, you see the purple is where it's more LDS or Mormon. You see the vote swing, and then when you net out the trend relative benchmark it to the nation, it's just super obvious, right? It's just super obvious that the LDS vote could not have swung right? At a minimum, right? Just ecologically. And then when you run the data, and this just shows you some of the prominent counties where Phoenix and Park City and Salt Lake and Provo, and you can see Logan, and look at you guys down there. Hey, Davis, way to go. But when you run the numbers and control for the other stuff in a statistical regression, you can see the biggest impact, right, is percent LDS, right? That's predicting a county shifting left, controlling for all the things that we know shifted right, like being predominantly Native American, Hispanic, and so forth and so on, right? So that's really good evidence that really, again, shows us the opportunity with LDS moderates and those voters. Okay, how am I doing? Can I go another 7 minutes? I can do that, right, team? Those in charge, I think we're good. We know from lots of surveys, Pew, Public Religion Research Institute, CES, right? All of them show the share of people identifying as LDS or Mormon going down. They all show the same thing. So they're all in agreement on the direction. There's no debate, right, among experts that the Mormon share of the population is decreasing. Now, there is a disagreement among the surveys about how fast, right? So this is the one showing the fastest decline, right? I don't think it's quite that fast. But if you kind of average and say the middle one, right, it's pretty much dropped in half, right? It's dropped from 2% to 1%, okay? And so this is a pretty big decline. And this has been very, very concentrated in Salt Lake County and California, right? California more so yesterday, Salt Lake County more so today in 2010s and 2020s. And stakes are like dioceses in the Catholic Church for those who are not LDS. And you can see so many of those closing, right? So Salt Lake has 3% of people who are LDS, but has 35% of the dioceses or stakes that are closing, right? So it's absolutely collapsing. Part of it is just people live somewhere else, right? But it's also the age structure of the population. Lots of reasons, right? Disaffiliation. But this is something we've already seen in the last 10 years that is remaking Utah and its politics and its state, right? And creating a gap between the legislature being, how LDS is it now? Like 85% or higher? It's pretty high, right? And the population being 50% LDS, right? And one party, the Democratic Party, actually has people that are LDS and not LDS, right? Actually represents and reflects, right, in terms of gender and occupation, race, ethnicity, right? Looks like Utah, right? And then the other party is really almost, right, becoming white LDS men, right? And again, the Democratic Party has white LDS men in office, right? Great ones, right? But it's not only them, right? And that's the issue where you say, oh, men and women, women are just better at communicating, automatically. It's like, what are you saying, right? It's because they have a different social experience, right? They've lived a different social experience. Why we need both voices, right? Just to give one example, okay? So one party is not reflecting that, right? Not reflecting the change of what's happened and what's happening, but this is a really, really big deal. Now, this visiting professor at BYU did his dissertation and somehow got to ask all 400,000 BYU alumni to participate in the survey, right? So he got a lot of responses, right? So he's got tens of thousands. And I want to show you a couple of things. So these are the respondents. They all served a mission, so they're disproportionately 78% men, right? And you can see the percent Republican just going down and down and down. So that's the pink bar over there. It's the same thing. Now on the right is they asked them, what about your parents? How Republican are they, right, in terms of affiliation, right? So they didn't look up administrative data, just do they affiliate. And you can see what is going on here, right? The gap gets bigger and bigger and bigger, right? Because one is going down, right? One kind of went up or is level high, right? Now again, you've got response bias. It may not be represented, but it's a sure huge sample, right? So the precision is high, right? I don't know exactly the accuracy, but I'm going to show you a double check because I got curious. I'm like, okay, that's people who served their mission in the 2000s and 90s. What, people my age. But what about younger people? Okay. Well, if you look up the BYU graduation program, which I did because I'm a nerdy person, and then you match all the people to 33 states in the voter files, which took a couple months. That's why I needed some more time for this presentation, right? This is what you see. I want to show you something. I'm going to show you one more after this. It's going to be interesting, right? So look at the gender thing, right? Is there any difference here? This is great having a class. Any difference between men and women Republican affiliation? My first 2 bullet points. It's a short answer. The answer is no, right? Men and women are both 50%, 51% Republican, right? But that was 2017. Okay, now watch what happens when we fast forward. And again, this is 60% men, and I just showed you one 78% men. So can we please get a sample? There's majority women, because most people graduating from college are women, right? And that's been true for a long time in the US. And when you look more recently, so this is all 90% registered after 2016, 63% women, and what do you notice there? They are twice as likely, right, to register as a Democrat than men, right? So this gender gap is starting to open up, right, and get bigger. Now the Republican thing's not that different. What's different is that men are more likely to opt for the independent thing than the Democratic thing, right? So they're more independent than the women. That sounds bad. They're more unaffiliated. The women are definitely more independent, I can tell you that based on other data sources. They're more unaffiliated, right, than the women, but the women are much more likely to be Democrats, right? It's double, right? And I've looked at this across many different things, and this is 70%, 76% of these are not sociology majors, right? These are just from all majors across the university, okay? So you see this break, clearly the Trump effect, get out of here, right? It clearly happened, it's clearly big, it's not anecdotal. There was a discontinuity, statisticians would say, right? This trend has a break where it just levels down to a whole different level, right? Whole different level. And that's absolutely true across thousands of people I've never met or taught, right, and those students. So to summarize this section, right, this is both generation and education, right? This is the effect of education, the alignment we talked about earlier, and generation. When you combine those, that loyalty that people said is automatic among LDS people is not so automatic anymore, right? Do they clearly lean Republican? Obviously, we know that's true, right? But it's not what it was in W. Bush and Romney. Right, those days are over, right? Because that party is gone, right? It's done, sadly. The finale, the final part. How are we doing with energy? Are we good? Okay, that's good. Provost protest was so big, and I know we're a bigger metro area, but it was just so awesome. I went to all of those last year. We can flip a lot of these seats. A lot of these are in reach, and even other ones are close as well, not listed here. We need to have an across-the-board effort. We've got all you guys running in Davis County. We've got Angela here running at HD9, right? Right next door in Weber. Everybody can help, right? Remember how it was in 2024, 2022, 2020. Remember all these legislative races? How many did they win by, the close ones? 100 votes. Rosemary's race, 200 votes, right? So you think, you're like, oh, it doesn't make that much of a... No, it does. Like if you really do a precinct really, really well, I've seen this in the mayoral race last year, you can actually make a difference, right? You can make a difference. You really, really can. I encourage you all to get involved, right? These were our messages in Utah County: public education, affordability, immigration, right? And the supermajority has to go ASAP, right? So to conclude, I want to invite you guys to think about what we can do to achieve these 3 aims. If we need another aim or we need to subtract an aim, I'm open to that too. I would love to hear from the candidates. I want to kind of give them preference, kind of like a seminar. You'd let the graduate students ask their questions first, and professors can just chill for a second. I really want to hear from the candidates. I want to hear what you see happening in Davis County, what's specific to here, to this neck of the woods as well. And I want to thank you guys for this extended version of this new presentation with new stuff that's never been seen before. Thank you. Okay. Okay. All right. I got to stand in a different spot now that I don't have to press the computer. I love you guys just as much as those guys. Sorry, it was over there so much. It's because of the button. Okay, candidates, any reactions, any, short, spunky things that don't have to be sound bites for your commercial, but anything?
We just turn this in as the results.
Yeah. Let me put you guys up here.
We'll just count it.
Yeah, I'd love to hear from any of you guys. I had you guys in mind. You're my top audience. If
I'm
not,
going to point out that
yeah,
the
and then you go
Morris
next.
spot on
Yeah.
11,
Yeah.
National Airport Space,
Yep.
300 registered voters, so it's not,
Yeah.
it's land.
Yeah.
He didn't get his picture up there.
Well, I didn't-
Dang. Dave, wait a minute. You running for 11, Dave?
That's right.
Okay. You know why? It's because it was split across the counties.
That's right.
And I think more of the voters live in Weber, maybe?
60%.
60%? Okay. That was close enough. You should have been in there.
But we're still claiming Dave.
All right. Dave, I can upload a new version and replace it on Google Slide. So I'll do that on Google Drive. I'll put your picture in there. Thank you for coming out, Dave. Yeah.
No problem.
You got 2 counties. Okay, Abigail. And then next to you, yeah.
Yeah, so with the primaries last week, we saw in my district not just a loss for Trevor, it was a demolish. Very unexpected. I thought it would be close.
I thought it'd be closer.
What do you think that says about
Yeah.
the district, about the trends there versus 2 years ago?
I think it's really kind of symbolic of what happened in the legislature too, where a lot of moderate Republicans, they put their foot down, and a lot of them just said, we're just tired of this. Why are we targeting trans people? Why are we doing this? This is just dumb. We don't have energy. You've already done this 2-3 years in a row, right? I think people, and this is the whole thing with Trump and MAGA too. You know how it is with a lot of people that are unaffiliated. They're just like, I'm just tired. It's been 10 years. I'm just sick of this, right? And I think a lot like discrimination cases that I've worked on, there's the smoking guns in that case, right? There's all the things that he said online. There's all the behaviors just so bad for a person, not just a public official. Just, really bad. And I mean like Republicans say it's bad, right? And that's what we saw. And I think it does speak to the broader idea of stop bullying immigrants, stop picking on gay people, right? Stop doing this, right? Just do what you learned in Sunday school and primary, basically, right? I think everybody's cool with let's argue about tax rates and the role of government, all that stuff, right? But he just was really, and again, that's what Trump unleashed. Everybody say, I'm going to copy him. I'm going to be as bad as him. I'm going to do that. And guess what we know from all the data? All the Trump copycats, from Blake Masters to Mike Lee to Ken Paxton to fill in the blank. What do they all do? Way worse than Trump every time they run, right? So I think we need to use this to say we got to run somebody that can beat Mike Lee, right? And I really like Suzanne Harris, and I really like lots of other people, but we need somebody who's an unapologetic Democrat, right? And if they're also LDS, bonus, but they don't have to be, right? But I think they should be an unapologetic Democrat, not somebody who's an ex-Republican, even though that's cool, right? Now they could be, right? But they got to be a Democrat, right? McMullen had the name recognition, but I think we need a Democrat, so we unite Democrats, we unite independents, and we can do it. Sorry, that was a long answer. But man, I know, it was so encouraging how that was just not even close. None of this election denial stuff, we got to recount. Nope, none of it. You've been so patient. Next slide.
My question was pretty much the same as Abigail's.
Yeah.
It's just, these numbers are all 2024. So I'm curious if there's any
Yeah.
insight on the last 2 years.
Yeah.
Does the change seem to be accelerating or
It does. And I just took out a whole bunch of slides to save time, but New Jersey and especially Florida, the Mar-a-Lago district that flipped blue, the one around Tampa, all of those districts were about 35% Democratic in terms of who was voting, right? So that means that Democrats were about 35, 36, 37% of the people voting, but they got over 50, right? So it's the same idea of the secret sauce, and this is what Tallarico knew from day one in Texas, is we're going to just go all in on independence, right? People in the middle, we're just going to get them and we're going to lock them up, right? And just have such commanding margins with them that we can do it. Now, the problem with people in the middle, as we all know, because most of us are Democrats who vote every time, is that people in the middle are what? Not that reliable voters, right? So if you can get them voting, right, that's kind of so the turnout is the last piece that Tallarico needs to do, right? But that idea has worked in New Jersey, in Virginia, in Texas, especially that one in Tarrant County. Tarrant County, I don't know if you know how many January 6ers are from Tarrant County. 23 arrested people, right? Tarrant County flipped blue, right, with that special thing. So there are precedents, right? And again, we've got a big map. We're contesting 80, 90% of the races in Utah County. You guys are contesting almost all of them here. Things happen. Things break our way. Right? People have scandals. People, things happen. So that's why you got to contest all the races so you can get some breaks that break our way.
Yeah, and that's Eric Last. He's got
Eric.
4 up on there. House District
Eric, yeah! Shout out to Eric. ERIC, baby. Yeah. Okay.
Next to Abigail.
Eric's going to have the last word in November, yo. That should be a commercial.
Robert back there, House District 15 plus D.
Yeah, okay, good. I'm like, yeah, you look like your picture. It's so hard. I have like 180 students in my class, and like 30 of them never look like their picture. I'm like, I cannot learn your name. You do not look like your picture. What did you do these last 5 years?
And then we got Brandon Young right there. They also
Brandon Young, we got Johnny Larson. Okay, now over here we got Scott, we got Garrett Rushford. I love it. We got Angela
Jeff
Jaberka
Anderson
here.
didn't make his picture.
Jeff Anderson.
House District 15.
No, you up there, right, Jeff?
Right there.
You going to the top, baby. Like they said in Rush Hour. When I get to the top, I'm going to make you mayor. And they're like, I'd rather you not do that.
Anna's out campaigning and knocking doors.
Good, good. Does it help you guys to see the data? To see like, okay, things are trending our way. Sometimes the trends are small, but when you compare them to the US, they get bigger, right? When you benchmark in the relative. I hope that helps, right? Because this is going to be, we've had generational politicians like Ronald Reagan, John F. Kennedy, Barack Obama. Tallarico's another one, right? You have to get people inspired, but also there's got to be some realistic sense of like, my vote's going to matter, right? And I think that's half the problem we've had outside of Salt Lake County. Everybody's like, it doesn't matter. I don't need to vote. Doesn't matter, right? But when they start seeing, we're in these local races. We got a Democrat on the Provo City Council. We got Democrats on the Provo City School Board, right? When they start seeing that, they're like, oh, snap. They're like, we can win, right? And there's more races beyond just the president, right? Especially for the young people. I'm like, you guys.
It's really hopeful.
It's really hopeful. Because we are building our bench, right? We need that bench to get bigger and bigger so that when I say who's going to run against Mike Lee, I'm thinking of 10 people, right? Not just 1 or 2 or 3. We need that bench. But we're building it. It's happening, right? It's awesome. Thank you, man, for being here. Yeah.
I live in Bountiful.
Yes.
What do you think about the rhino effect? How many of these Republicans are actually rhinos too?
Yep,
I mean,
yep.
that is the deal.
It's growing all the time.
And that was me until just
Yep.
recently.
That's right. And I'm so glad you're here tonight. And it's like, you know what? If this has been people's, what political scientists call a super identity, it actually overrides their religious identity, their racial identity. It's their number one identity. We see that on social media. It's like, that's okay. I'll hold your hand. You just slowly vote the right way and do the right thing. If you want to call yourself Republican, I am totally fine with that.
It's where you can make a difference.
It's where you can make a difference. Yeah, it's pragmatic. Because like she's saying, if we all just, have club night all the time, right? We're not really multiplying, right? But then when we're getting out there, right? Because people in my ward, they know unapologetic right there. You got the whole block on lock. Harris, right? And then people know, they're like, wait a minute, that person, she's a county delegate for the Republican Party. And she's got a Harris sign, and you know what I'm saying? Like then they start to, they're like, put 2 and 2 together, right? But when you come to our neighborhood, and you walk to a BYU football game, pride flags, Harris signs, you know what I'm saying? So that can happen, but that wasn't that way when I moved in 2012, right? That took work, right? It took talking to all the people in their 20s, 30s, 40s, and 50s. And I'm actually most interested in all the people in their 40s and 50s, right? Because everybody's like, it's just automatically young people are more open-minded. And I'm like, well, I know some young people that are, deputy clerk down where I am. Right? It's not automatic, right? But what I'm interested in the people in their 40s and 50s, because we have raised the teenagers who grew up under Trump, right? We've raised the kids who never knew Obama as president, right? They have been dealing with this and COVID their whole socialized life, right? And I think for some of us, it has rocked our world, right? Especially when people have their kids come out and other things happen. A lot of them say, oh, snap, these are the bad guys, right? Like, what they're standing for, the legislature, right? So I want to do what's right. I think it's really interesting the people that have changed their mind in the middle. And obviously we all know the replacements happening. Every day I've matched all the obituaries. I didn't even show you that, right? I think I had one graph, but 80% of the people dying are Republican, right? So they're literally dying, right? So, no, I'm just saying in terms of demography, right? Population replacement, if you have 80% dying Republican and 50% registering Republican, okay, it's still a red state, but it's going down 30 points, right? And that's just So you have the background change, and then you have the foreground, right? Helps us maybe like stage acting, right? The foreground is like all the anti-MAGA stuff. But the background thing is just going to keep on going. That train left the station, and it's just going to keep going. And it's the same thing happening in Texas, Kansas, Alaska, all over America. Yeah, Garrett and Scott. I really appreciate being with you guys.
Yeah, thank you. So looking at this, the percentage of voters who came out for the Republican primary in Davis County, we didn't really have a super strong Democratic primary in a lot of the area.
Right, a lot of registered Republicans.
Davis County was slightly above average. I don't know if you have any data on this, but what does that indicate as far as like what the energy is going to be for everyone who might not be a Republican, like an unaffiliated Democratic voter, pushing out towards, because I'm running against Stephanie Hollis now. But I was looking at the information, and like 34 and 28 still is more than 43, and so the turnout's not super high.
It's pretty good for a primary. I think that turnout 40 is good, right?
I think the average is usually just about 30%.
But like what you're saying, right? Somebody 0.4 times 0.4 is what? That's 0.16 of all the voters, right? That's what I think Garrett is saying, right? That when you look across the board of all the voters who are registered, she got 16%, and one-handedly, thank you God, right, that she did. But still, that leaves 84%, right? Now, a lot of them won't vote in a midterm, but it doesn't mean that she got over 50% of the people registered, right? So you got a people up for grabs. Are they going to engage? I think what we've seen in Colorado, what was that last night, right, is that a lot of people are going against the people that won't fight against Trump, that won't do something, right? That's really the energy in our party, at least the dividing line is, are you just going to write a letter or are you going to actually do something, right? And that's why when Chris Van Hollen went down to El Salvador, right, with Kilmar Abrego Garcia, and he met with him, people said, dang, now there's somebody who will actually put their thing on the line and do something, right? And that's really rewarded by the voters. It's really rewarded. And Chris Van Hollen is not some radical or some, you know what I'm saying, some socialist or whatever people say, right? He's a mainline Democrat, but he actually acted and did something, right? And I think that's what they're going to reward. I think it's going to really come out. And I think people in the middle are going to reward that too. But like I said with the cross-partisan thing, you've got to get something. And that's what happened with that 2022 race. Remember with McMullen, big storm came in at 4 o'clock. That was part of it. Remember Nevada with the snow, dampened turnout. So all the people, all the students are like, oh, I got to vote. Oh, snap, it's snowing outside. Right, we lost them. But also with the McMullen thing, he didn't have a party, and running unaffiliated on paper, right? And we talked to somebody, remember at the convention about this, the other guy who was running CD4. On paper, it looks real good, but people don't really have a galvanizing thing, right? And we have that. We have that, especially what we saw in Minnesota, right? The way it has united people. We need something to unite around. The data centers is something, right? That's something, that treasure, we got to just grab it and just say, that's got to unite people. We got to unite around something. It can't just be, oh, I'm against, both sides are bad. Come on now. After these last 10 years, you know, right? There's got to be something, right? But people will respond to that. So I'm hopeful. I don't know. I haven't run all the numbers on turnout for you, right? But it's good that people are energized because you're going to get the people who really care and are really against these folks to vote in the midterm. They're definitely going to turn out higher than they did in 2022 and maybe even 2018. And remember, 2018, we got redistricting. We got medical marijuana. We got Ben reelected, right? McAdams. We got a lot in 2018, and we're going to do even better. So that's what I'm talking about. Mr. Scott.
Yeah, I'm curious about your thoughts on Utah as a swing state. You alluded to it.
Yeah.
I have felt for a long time.
I know.
Utah should be
I know.
a swing state. But what I mean, you
I know.
run the data.
I wish we had another map. So you guys are kind of aware, you kind of see what's going on here, right? We've got a whole crescent around us, like a little cradle. Utah's a baby, right? Here's our cradle. Right? All the states with the best flags, Colorado, New Mexico, Arizona, Utah, we have the best flags, by the way. A lot of those states are kind of in common, right? Now, these states, I think, are different because Vegas is kind of an exurb of LA, right? It's where people got priced out. If you don't have a college degree, you can get a good job with health insurance in Vegas and you can get a house, right? So Vegas became an outpost and grew because of the housing crisis in California, right? So let's just throw Nevada to the side for a second, right? Now, Colorado's got a lot in common in terms of the mountains, a really highly educated population. New Mexico's got a lot of differences, right? It's one of the most Hispanic states. It's definitely one of the poorest states. So Colorado's more similar. But I think the one that's going to be the most instructive is Arizona. right? Because of what they went through, their legislature just going so off the rocker, having Russell Pierce, the president of the Senate, pass the Show Me State Bill 1070 in 2010. That was their moment, like we had with Trevor Lee and Stuart Adams, hopefully, right? They hit their nadir in 2010, Arizona. They deported, I don't know if you know, but under Bush and Obama, they deported like 100,000 Central Americans and Mexicans. And that just devastated the housing market, devastated the supply side, the demand side, the rental market. Arizona Republic, conservative paper came out and said we should never do that again. So I think we're more like Arizona, right, with the LDS voting block and everything than all the other states. And if Arizona's any guide, like we can get to the pink, purple stage, right? We can get there and have leaders like they have Katie Hobbs. Their Secretary of State is great, who just likes to run elections efficiently. He's a great guy who knows so much. I don't know why I'm blanking on his name all of a sudden, but their Secretary of State, Adrian Fontes, right? He's awesome, right? If we can just gain that respect and get leaders like Fontes and Hobbs, right, get statewide office, I think people will kind of see like, oh yeah, this is the party we want to be with, right? They've had the astronaut to his senator, Mark Kelly, and his wife who was tragically injured in shooting Gabby Giffords and everything. They've had a few things push them there, but they had their moment where they really, in 2010, and a researcher, a historian who's not LDS, has written a book about Hispanic Relief Societies about this, but they had their moment where they had all the flyers in the chapels for deportation, against deportation. The Spanish-speaking people saying, just follow what the church says, right? And the English-speaking people saying, be hard, right? And then that guy ended up losing to a guy in the primary that was also a Republican who just said, just follow the law, do what the church says, don't deport families, right? And ever since then, they've turned more and more purple, Arizona. But that was like their crucible. And it wasn't automatic, right? It was because just like Georgia and just like Tallarico and Texas, they organized. That's why I wanted to show you the stats on our caucuses and convention in Utah County, because I'm sure just like you guys, we just had enormous turnout, tons of people, and it makes a difference. I mean, even, what MWEG's doing in the other places, you can see it in these primaries, right? Like these people are clear. Yeah, you had the largest turnout. So when people are organized and turn out, it does start to tip the balance, right? But we've got to have a sense of, we got to get over that self-defeatism. I'm the only person in my Sunday school class. I'm the only person in my block. It's just not true. Yeah. Right? We elected so many. I think I had on my thing. I don't remember the number. So I think of all the states, we're going to trace this path. In some ways, we're most like Alaska and Kansas too, because they just have been so, this one kind of geographically isolated. We've been so culturally isolated before the internet and social media, people wearing overalls in Utah for a really long time and stuff. Culturally isolated, I don't mean farmers, but I mean suburban kids, dressing like 10 years out of style. But now in the last, but since the rise of the internet, especially with, I think, social media since Romney ran, right? I mean, think about how different it is to have a phone and social media versus 2011, 2010. But since then, I think we really converged. So in a way, Alaska also offers lessons of a place that's like off the beaten path. They have coalitions. They have a coalition government with the moderate Republicans and the Democrats. That's how they beat MAGA. They actually allied, just like the Europeans do, like in a coalition. So there's lots of paths for us to get there. Ranked choice voting is another one.
So do you have a sense for on the Republican side? Because in my district 13, I feel like that that things are kind of trying to swing my way, and that the person that I'm running against feels like it's going to be his because it's a Republican. Is there something to that?
Yeah.
That people that they might not see what's coming for them in a lot of areas?
Yeah, that's what Abigail was saying about Trevor Lee, why he got so blindsided, because it was like, it wasn't close. So we're kind of in this phase, right, where Trump, this has been 10 years now since 2016. So we're at year 10. Oh my goodness. Right, and again, like I said, imagine the people that are 25, right, because it's been since they were 15, right? We're in year 10, so we're now at the phase where people are saying, oh my goodness, the legislature is MAGA. Everything they've been passing is MAGA. They've been getting worse every year. And Cox has really folded. Now, he still vetoes stuff, right? You know what I'm saying? So he can sleep at night. He does a little bit, right? But he's folded so much, right? He's folded so much. But people really starting to see, oh my goodness, right? MAGA is here. They overtook the Republican Party in Utah. Now, it doesn't mean we don't have a lot of great Republicans who have won the battle in their little area, right? like Marcia and some others, right? But they won. And it took the longest to overtake the Republican Party in the state of Utah. It took longer than any other state. And when did that happen? The day that Cox endorsed Trump in 2024, right? It took 8 years to overtake Utah. I mean, that's a testament. That's something we should brag about. Be like, my Republican neighbors, they didn't just roll over, right? But now that people see, oh my goodness, our legislatures just copy-paste bills, right? What about the Olympics? What about the Great Salt Lake? What about our problems here with affordability, the 2-hour traffic I just took to get here, right? They are not addressing those problems. So I think that's the next connection. Now, I don't have a crystal ball, right? Like, I don't do messaging. I don't do like advising candidates on that stuff, right? But I sure hope it doesn't take another 10 years, right, for people to start to punish this. I think the primaries are really good evidence that it's not going to take as long as we think. People are really saying with this data center corruption, whew, that was so bad. So bad. You know, the process, right? Not even just how bad the data center is, but the process just was so deeply offensive. I mean, the fact that the 2 Box Elder commissioners lost their, I'm like, Box Elder County? I mean, how many people know where that is on a map, right, outside of Utah, right? I mean, that really shows. But we really have to help them connect the dots and say, this person has been overtaken. And I'm totally fine with saying, you know what, Nickel and others, right, they're the good guys, they're doing good things, right? That's fine. Deidre Henderson, she will clap back at Trump every other day, right? You know, Abby Cox, right? Looks like gender's playing a role here, right? The 2 women, right, they're still holding firm against Trump, right? And they're not going to give in. If they haven't given in now, they never will, right? But Cox sold his soul, right? He sold out. He sold out, right? And he's still a good person. I'm not trying to make a judgment about him. God will judge him, right? But he sold out to Trump in terms of the Republican thing, right? And it was a calculation he made after Trump, the assassination attempt, right? He's very crafty, Cox, very, you know what I'm saying? He's very partisan, and that was really, really sad, right? But the way Henderson has held on is inspiring. But you know what's going to happen? She might not win a primary, right? She might not make it. So that's why we need to be ready, right? We need to be ready with a really good candidate for governor, right? Because can you imagine, like, somebody MAGA running this state? Like Deep Core? Oh, Curtis, man. Oh, that guy. I thought you were going to be the best guy in the environment, but you ain't done nothing on the environment. I'm so sad. And I taught his son. He was a great student, you know what I'm saying? He was there at the Court of Honor. Curtis, he was a great mayor, you know what I'm saying? But people aren't rising to this moment. Some of them are just kind of slinking off to the side like Curtis, you know, just disappearing stage right. I won't say stage left, right? Right? They're not rising to the moment, but some are, and people really reward them. And I don't know if you guys knew, but in Kansas, last thing I'll say, because I know we're almost out of time, Kansas, there were 3 women locally there. They were all Republicans, and they all actually switched to be Democrats. So I think it would be kind of cool if we could get some high-profile people to switch, you know what I mean, have them be like a showcase, and you know, just for a day or 2, right? But just to help people see, because that happened in Kansas in Johnson's County, which is a lot like Davis County, just swung blue so much. They were just like, yeah, my party left me, right? My party left me, and so I'm leaving the party. That's my hope. Yeah, last couple, yeah.
So I just wanted
to,
in part on
Yeah.
the candidates, and hopefully you agree with me. The county party has taken care of volunteer recruitment, phones, GOTV, the community building, the visibility, a lot of that.
And you got like a walk the block app or something like that?
Yeah,
Okay,
I
see.
have said, I just need my candidates to go knock all the doors and the undecideds and the soft Republicans and the people. There are those people in the middle, and I think this
They
shows
are.
that their job is to go talk to those people, and that
Yes.
is their number one
Yep.
job.
It's just like triage in a hospital. Don't worry about the people that we've lost. It's okay. You know what I'm saying? It's okay. You don't have enough energy and money in these few months to do that. But the people in the middle, you have a huge opportunity. Just like this wonderful woman was saying, right? That the people in the middle, that is where you're going to see the movement. And it can happen. It can happen. Yeah. What we got to do. What was that, Angela? Sorry. No, the opponent's not going to be doing that. Most Republicans in Utah County, at least, I'll just speak for them. All they do is put up big signs, and they're doing something else I don't know about, but that's all they're doing visibly. They'll just put up big signs, so when people are driving, they think everybody supports them, but that's about all they'll do, right? And some of them are in cahoots with the sign maker, or they got the signs for free. That's what Stratton did. I'm like, wow, okay. I see what's going on here, right? Right? But you guys, we all know from political science research that in-person deep canvassing with people is so effective, right? And I just want to say the last thing, the reason why it's so healing is when you knock doors, 80-90% of the people are what? Normal. They're so normal. They're not keyboard warriors. And it's so refreshing because you're just like, yeah, you care about schools, you care about affordability. They're normal. Of course, 10-20% you're going to get the people that are, you know what I'm saying? But those filters and analytics and the apps that you're going to give them, they're really good. So let's get a cheer. Can we do this? Davis County Democrats? Yes, we can. Yes, we can. Woo! Go get them. I appreciate you guys. I need to make sure I eat something, by the way, when I leave this place. Yeah, Johnny, get the last word.
Yeah, sorry. No, thank you for coming out here.
Yeah, you're welcome,
I just didn't want to steal the thunder from any of the other candidates out here since I'm no longer a candidate down here. Davis County, you guys are absolutely
You're
phenomenal.
commemorative.
Thank you so much. You asked what candidates have been seeing, so I just
Yeah.
kind of wanted to report on that.
Yeah,
That
give a report.
the Republicans, because that's who I talk to most. I'm not interested in talking to Democrats right now, and I'm talking to leadership, like council members, mayors, whoever I can.
What are you hearing?
They are tired of the infighting, and I think that
That's what I was talking about.
yeah,
Like
the primary, that showed them. We saw them. They were tired, they were sick and tired of people who were divisive, angry,
Yes.
rude, whatever,
Yes.
right? And when I talk to them about just working together again, they're like, yes,
Let's do it.
please.
Let's do it.
That's all they want.
Yep.
That's what they want to do. So the less we can be divisive,
Yep.
not only amongst ourselves, but them,
Yep.
no matter what's going on. I understand that we are all angry about what's happening.
Yeah.
So are they, and it's absolutely
So right.
clear. And your point on the commissioners with Box Elder, same thing happened in Millard. Vicki Lyman lost hers
Wow.
over the Jewel Lake.
Yep, the one
Yeah,
down there.
yeah. So
Same thing.
and
happening
the
all
other
the
one
time.
didn't even run. So like,
And I would definitely use the word, use the word that Johnny said. I'm not being divisive, right? We're tired of people being divisive because that's a word they like to use, divisive, right? We are uniting. We're getting ready for the Olympics, saving this lake, building this road, solving this traffic, building houses. Let's do this, Democrats. Let's do it. Woo! Appreciate you guys. Yeah. Let's go, team.